Have you ever reached a moment when the noise of life faded, and all that was left was silence? A silence so deep that you began to whisper, "God, are you still here?" That's what it felt like for the people who stood on the far side of the Red Sea. The waves had already crashed behind them, sealing their past forever. Egypt was gone. The slavery, the fear, the whips, all buried beneath the water. For the first time in generations, they were free. Yet as the roar of the sea faded into stillness, a new question filled the air. What happens after freedom? Because when the sea closes, the journey doesn't end, it begins. The miracle is not only in the parting of the waters, but in the walk that comes after. Many of us live in that after the victory, after the prayer was answered, after the moment everyone called a miracle. But then life goes quiet again. No thunder, no music, no crowds, only the long road ahead. And that's where faith must grow roots. Welcome to Faith and English Bible Stories, where the Word of God meets the rhythm of your daily language. Here, we don't just read the Bible, we walk through it, step by step, word by word. Each story is more than history. It's a mirror that reflects your own journey of faith, doubt, and discovery. Now imagine this scene. The sun sets over the endless desert. 1,000,000 footprints mark the golden sand. Children laugh softly while weary mothers hold them close. And Moses, once a fearful man before Pharaoh, now stands still listening. The sea behind him has closed, but before him lies the unknown. It's here, in this in-between, between miracle and mission, that the real story begins. A story that asks, what do you do after God delivers you? Do you stop believing because the sea is gone? Or do you keep walking, trusting that the same God who opened the way will guide you through the wilderness? Close your eyes. Listen to the wind move across the sand. That sound, that stillness is not empty. It's God's whisper. I'm not finished with you yet, because faith doesn't end with the miracle. It starts there. And sometimes the calm after the storm is where the next chapter of your destiny begins. Comment below, Faith, the desert classroom. The sea was silent now, only the wind spoke. Brushing across the wide sands of the Sinai wilderness, the people stood still, staring at a horizon that stretched like a golden sea of dust. Moments earlier, they had seen the impossible, water rising like walls, dry ground appearing beneath their feet. They had danced as Pharaoh's army vanished beneath the waves. Their chains were gone, their past erased. But freedom, they soon learned, was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of responsibility, and the desert, vast and empty, became God's classroom. There were no palaces, no soldiers, no comfort, only sky, sand, and silence. Each step away from Egypt was a step deeper into faith. They could no longer depend on what they saw. They had to depend on whom they trusted. The desert was not sent to destroy them, but to develop them. It stripped away everything familiar, the food, the rhythm, the routines, until only faith remained. And so the people walked. Children clung to their parents' robes. The elderly leaned on staffs, whispering prayers of gratitude and fear. The young looked ahead with hope that sometimes flickered, sometimes faded. Days passed. The sun burned high. The path seemed endless. The miracle felt like a memory, but that silence after the sea was not emptiness. It was a test, because silence reveals what miracles cannot: the heart. God often leads his people into quiet places, not to punish, but to prepare. Before the promised land comes, the proving ground. Before victory comes testing. Before glory comes growth. The desert was both their destination and their teacher, the place where they would discover who they were and who God truly is. Comment below, Lord, help me learn in the desert the bitter waters of Marah. 3 days passed. No water, no shade, no songs, The same people who once sang praises now murmured in frustration. They had seen the Red Sea open, yet could not find a single drop to drink. Isn't that how faith feels sometimes? One day you're celebrating a miracle. The next you face another mountain. At last they saw water glimmering ahead, a pool sparkling beneath the sun. Hearts lifted. Children ran forward. But when they tasted it, it was bitter Marah, bitterness. And the bitterness wasn't just in the water. It was in their hearts, the same mouths that sang, "The Lord is my strength," now cried, "Why did you bring us here?" But this wasn't about water. It was about trust. God had parted the sea. Could he sweeten the desert? He had defeated Pharaoh. Could he care for the thirsty? Moses did what true faith always does. He cried out to God, no complaining, no arguing, just prayer. And the Lord showed him a tree. When Moses threw it into the water became sweet. That moment wasn't only a miracle, it was a message. God was teaching them that faith must live not just in great moments, but in small ones. It's easy to believe when oceans open, harder when life gives you bitter water. Each believer faces this same question. Will you trust God only for big miracles or also for daily mercies? The people learned that the same power that divided the sea could also touch a single drop. The same God who rescued them from Pharaoh could refresh them in the desert. And that was the test every heart must pass. To believe even when life tastes bitter, because sometimes before God gives you the sweet, He allows the bitter to show you that only He can change both. Comment below, God, I'll trust you even in bitter times. When God turns bitter into sweet, when Moses threw the piece of wood into the water, everything changed. The same pool that had poisoned their hope turned crystal clear. Mothers lifted water to their children's lips. The old drank slowly, tears of relief falling like rain. That day, they learned something deeper than survival. They learned that God doesn't only part seas, He also touches drops. He cares not just for nations, but for hearts, for thirst, for moments that seem too small to matter. And there at Marah, heaven gave a promise wrapped in a miracle. If you listen carefully to my voice, I will be your healer. God was showing them that obedience and trust are not heavy chains. They are keys that open new springs. Soon after, the journey led them to Elim, a place of palm trees and 12 flowing springs, one for every tribe. After bitterness came rest. After silence came song. That is God's rhythm, not always loud, but always loving. He leads us from the edge of despair to the center of peace, one step of obedience at a time. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not when God removes the desert, but when He brings water into it. When you expect distance, He gives presence. When you fear lack, He provides abundance. And just like the Israelites, you may be walking from Marah to Elim, from the bitter place to the sweet, guided by the same unseen hand. Comment below, God can turn my bitter into sweet. Faith in the in-between. The Red Sea, Marah, and Elim were not random stops. They were steps in a divine pattern. Each place carried a lesson that still speaks to every believer today. At the Red Sea, God showed His power. At Marah, He revealed His patience. At Elim, He displayed His provision. Power shows that He can. Patience shows that He cares. Provision shows that He completes. Faith is learning to trust through every stage. Not only when the sea opens, but when the desert stretches long. Maybe you're standing between miracles. The last one feels far away. The next one hasn't come yet. This is the in-between, the waiting season where trust grows roots. Remember, God never stops leading just because the road grows quiet. If He opened the sea, He can open the sky. If He turned bitter water sweet, He can turn sorrow into strength. Sometimes we want the miracle to change our surroundings, but God uses the miracle to change us. That is the secret of every wilderness story. God isn't only showing His people who He is, He's showing them who they can become when they walk with Him. Comment below, faith grows in the in-between. The journey continues. When the Red Sea closed, It wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of transformation. The same waves that destroyed Pharaoh's army also washed away Israel's fear. But freedom always leads somewhere new, and the road through the wilderness had only just begun. God's miracles don't always come with thunder or fire. Sometimes they arrive quietly, as a sunrise, a gentle wind, or a whisper that says, "Keep walking." He who opened the sea was now guiding his people step by step through dry sand and burning sun. Maybe your own sea has closed, the danger is gone, yet the silence feels heavy. You wonder what comes next, how to move forward, or whether God still sees you. But remember this, the same hand that rescued you yesterday still leads you today. Faith isn't about seeing the whole map, it's about trusting the guide. The Israelites learned that miracles are not just moments to remember, they are invitations to continue. God wanted them to walk with him, not just when the waters rose, but when the desert stretched long and lonely. So if your life feels quiet after victory, don't lose heart. The silence isn't the absence of God. It's the space where your faith learns to breathe. Each new day is a page still being written, and every step forward is another yes to his plan. Here at Faith and English Bible Stories, we believe every miracle still speaks. Each story builds your English and your faith. If this message touched you, share it with someone who needs hope today. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of light, language, and faith. Comment below. My miracle continues.